What's going on YouTube? It's the Monopoly Man James here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my first ever property, my rent-to-own property, and how it almost got me sued. Stay tuned because you're not going to want to miss this one. Alright guys, I'm just going to jump right into it. And so, for my first rental property, right, I'll just tell you right now, it's in Indianapolis, Indiana, but I was going to buy a property in Oklahoma, right? And it's an area, Oklahoma, that probably no one's ever heard of unless you've been there. It's not a big city. It's more of a suburb of Tulsa. So I found this property in Oklahoma, and it was around $130,000. I had the money for 15% down payment, right? And I'm saying 15% because I found a lender that would be able to lend me 15%, or I would be able to put 15% down on the property, right? So the lending process of this property was taking a little bit longer. This was my first property, so everything was brand new. I was feeling everything a new investor is feeling: scared, anxious, nervous, excited, all in one. So whenever we're going through the lending process, actually I found another property in Indianapolis, Indiana, and that property screamed to me. That screamed that you should do this deal rather than the deal that's in Oklahoma. So what did I do? I canceled the entire process, and what did my realtor come back with? Hey, you're canceling this contract? I wouldn't do that if I was you, and not, being a nervous investor, I kind of start getting scared. I'm just like, okay, why shouldn't I cancel this contract? She comes back with, you're already in default. I've already had to extend the contract because the lending process was taking a while, right? So I was on the phone with her. She was telling me, hey, you're in default already. They could sue you. And being a new investor, again, that scares me. I was scared out of my mind. And again, I'm thinking about the property that's in Indianapolis. I'm like, I have to do this deal. I have to. It's such a better deal. The cash flow. I'll run into the numbers actually a little bit later. But she's like, they're gonna sue you, they're gonna come after you, and they're gonna be able to sue you for the full price of the property. So being a new investor, I thought all of this was completely true. She's telling me, go back in the contracts, it says that they could sue you. Fast forward a few days, actually my realtor in Indianapolis, he hooked me up. He was saying there's no way that they can sue you for the full price of the property. They could keep your earnest money, and that's about it. And when I went back to the contracts to see what my realtor is actually talking about, and in the contracts it does say that they could sue me up to 5% of the value of the property if they wanted to go down that route. 5% of that property was roughly $7,000. They weren't gonna sue me for that amount because they could possibly pay that much in legal fees, blah blah blah. So yeah, nothing happened. I canceled the contract. Maybe a week later, I was talking to my realtor that was in Indianapolis, and he was kind of giving me the gist of, she's probably trying to back you into a corner. She was just trying to get her commission. She just invested, she invested that time. I understand that. Yeah, it was kind of a crappy thing for me to do, to cancel that contract. But as an investor, I found a better opportunity, and I was going to take that route. What's up guys? If you're taking some sort of value out of this video, please drop a like and a subscribe down below. It really does help out my channel. It helps me reach a much bigger audience, and that way I can help them on their financial freedom. Thanks. Okay, so fast forward 4-ish weeks later, I closed on the property in Indianapolis, and within 4 days, guys, 4 days, I got a tenant in that property doing my rent-to-own lease option strategy. So here I'm gonna break down some numbers for you. Like I said, this is my first deal. I have a second property that's actually in Oklahoma. It's not in the same city as this one, but let me break down some numbers for you. So the property that was in Oklahoma, right? That was around $130,000 dollars to purchase it. I put down my 15% of roughly $20,000. I would get, for my rent to own system, I was going to get $1,100 in rent. That's without the down payment, right? The equity position in this property was also not as high as the property in Indianapolis. So the equity in this specific deal was roughly $5,000. So wasn't a lot of wiggle room. So let's go now to the Indianapolis property. So putting down my 20-ish thousand down on the property, my mortgage was going to be running around $800 a month. So about $300 in cash flow. That's pretty good. Not as good as the one in Indianapolis, but I will say, some people will be talking about you gotta take out expenses for vacancy, you gotta take out expenses for repairs, yada 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 throughout the years. So with the rent to own system, the tenant, it's like it's their property. In the contract, it's stating that whenever it comes to repairs, they are responsible for all repairs of the property. So I don't have to touch that. So basically all my expenses, once I get a tenant inside the property, kind of stop. I don't have any expenses that go along with the property. Now let's move on to the house in Indianapolis. The house in Indianapolis was originally on the market for $80,000. Then a buyer kind of snatched it up. They didn't end up going with it. I don't know what the issue was with that, but when they put it back on the market, it was $85,000. And I knew from doing all my market research that this property was at least worth $105,000. So screaming deal, $20,000 worth of equity. I knew I had to jump on this immediately. So what I did was I contacted the realtor. He went, got video of the property for me. We got under contract for $90,000 with the seller paying, I believe it was $2,500 in closing costs. I put in 15% of that came out to roughly $15,000. That $74,500 mortgage loan, that comes out with principal, interest, taxes, insurance. That comes out to, what is that? I believe it's roughly $600-ish. So that's what I was working with. I knew market rents, just rents, not my rent to own system. Rents were around $900. So I already knew I was gonna be able to get someone in there for at least $1,000. When it came to put a tenant in the property, they're paying me $1,200 a month. They put a $3,000 down payment, and inside the contracts, there's also a clause in there that says the house, whenever in 2 years when the lease is up, the house cannot sell below a certain number, and my certain number I believe was $102,000. Right there, I've already secured what was it? It's about $12,000 in equity. That's just pure profit. That doesn't include the mortgage pay down that the tenant is paying every single month. That doesn't include the appreciation that the area has appreciated in that specific spot. It's increased about 5% per year. So that minimum amount is what the house cannot sell below by when that 2-year lease is up. When the 2 years up, we'll get a fair market appraisal, and that will determine what the selling price is. It cannot be below whatever is $102,000, $103,000. It can't be below that, or I can't sell to them, or they're just gonna have to pay for the $102,000, $103,000. But the market's looking pretty good right now in that area, so it's going to be increasing hopefully by 5% every year. So hopefully in about 2 years, that's going to equal $20,000 worth of extra profit. That doesn't include, getting 100% of my down payment for the house. That doesn't include the mortgage pay down. That doesn't include the cash flow that I am producing with the property, which the cash flow is, that's roughly $600 a month. It's a little bit less, but guys, that's my first deal, and honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better deal. Being very scared, being very nervous with my first property, it was a pretty wild ride. I'm not gonna lie. Pushing through it, knowing what I want to do with my financial life. I could have just stopped. I could have just said, nope, this isn't for me. They're trying to sue me. I'm gonna go with this one. Get less cash flow. I could have made it work. I went with my gut. I got the deal, and I'm making passive income right now. That was my first property. I got my second property. I don't know if I'll make a video on that. I probably will. But until next time, guys, I'm out. Peace.